small talk with you and other researchers. So yeah, the topic is investigation of the behavioral interdependencies in urban infrastructure usage and policy analysis. But it is actually just topic. So the presentation is about I will introduce three papers. I mean three academic articles. Actually, all of three are under review now. So I just want to introduce and then also you can ask me any comments or questions, and or if you have any interested in some those kind of topics. So maybe you can email me and we can make some collaborations. Yep. So should we work?
키보드로도 안 돼.
키보드도 안 됩니다. 됩니다. 네. So these are the table of contents today. So first one is actually I'm gonna talk about three papers. So most of the research is based on two motivation for now, for this year. So the first motivation is the how to live well in the cities. I mean, by doing the policy analysis, we want to see how can we live well in the cities. So these are the two papers. So first one is about fair extension policies. I mean the fair extension policies for aging populations. And I want to see what is the exact policy impact of the fair extension policies. The second one is the keyword will be little complicated like a title, but the keyword is the commuting time and work-life balance and gender disparities. And the second motivation is some kind of a modeling development. So this modeling is about more like predicting or analyzing traffic safety in urban context. So bit of myself, actually I'm an assistant professor in the University of Seoul, Department of the Smart Cities, and I have a small lab, actually really small lab, just 7 students in here. So the lab name is East Lab because I'm not actually naming it. Like my students, they're sometimes playing the StarCraft or those things, but they use these names, so that's why it becomes like these names. So previously, before joining the University of Seoul, I used to work in the International University. And then before coming to Korea, I used to doing some postdoc in Denmark Technical Universities as a Horizon 2020 scholar. And before going to the Europe, during the PhD students, I used to work in the Argonne National Laboratory. So these are the major research development project for me. So mostly about the NRF. And motivation one is the smart cities, because I'm working as a faculty member in the Department of the Smart Cities. So the Aristotle said a city states comes into being for the sake of living, but it actually exists sake of the living well. So, but there is a lot of challenges in our cities. So population profile changes, aging populations increase, and some disparities, social disparities, and also people's expectation about the social welfare becomes increased, and then also carbon neutrality issues. And so the question is, how do we live well in the cities? So policies considering existing policy usually considering the independent silos, but I believe that those kind of policies are no longer effective in the futures. I mean, actually now. So, for example, birth incentives, just merely giving some money, or we keep talking about the 15-minute cities, but there is a lot of obstacles we need to overcome to make some these kind of policies. The second motivation is dilemmas in urban analytics. Many of people in here already familiar with these kind of like terms and like nomenclatures in here. So algorithm selection is a long been like a debatable topics, and then also actually we need to make some like a fusioning the data, interdependent nature of the urban infrastructures. And also these days there's a kind of a lot of like AI applications or generative modelings are becomes available. So still the data fusion is a kind of hot topic, but there's a lot of option to make some data actually fakely or make it reasonably generate the data, but there's need to have some validation process for generative structures of the data set. And then the final one is it is also long like debatable topics, the flexibility, interpretability, and uncertainties, right? So ongoing research interest is, this part is a kind of more like a policy analysis. This part is the more like a modeling analysis. So 7 of my students, like 5 of them is basically has been studying background about the social science. So they try to prefer to doing some policy analysis using some data. And then 2 is background is engineering. So they want to do some kind of modeling or something. So yeah, we'll talk about these 2 topics using some policy analysis method. The first one is, do we have enough mobility welfare policies for elders? And so try to understand the heterogeneous treatment effects on public transit fare extensions. So research question is simply say, how much the impact of the fare extensions? And then, is there any possible ways to extension of the mobility welfare in cities now? So research background. So fare extensions, it was actually first introduced 1980, and then now still having some same kind of like policies until 1984. And then you can see, if you see the trend of the age versus like the frequency of the using the public transit, you can see there is a kind of discontinuity in the 65. So usually if we can find this kind of discontinuity, we usually use like a regression discontinuity design or something. But the regression discontinuity design or those kind of things are usually just focusing on average treatment impact. So average treatment impact can dilute some real impact by individual or by spatial or sometimes by temporal. So there's a kind of non-parametric orthogonal modeling for heterogeneous treatment effect. Like the name looks like fancy, but it is not fancy. It is kind of old things, but mixture with the name and orthogonality with the non-parametric modeling, such as like machine learning things. So there is a kind of non-orthogonality is generally used for causal inference to reduce the sensitivity of estimates to error in auxiliary models. Nuance parameters simply say we try to minimize the impact of the control variables, confounding factors to the variable that we interested in, the fare extensions, like a treatment. So these are the equations for that. So yeah, these two, actually we have a time, in the long time, like a traditional modeling, we using just like a fixed parameters in here. But in here, we can use the non-parametric features function in here. So non-parametric function is up to you, whatever you want to do. Like you can use, you're familiar with the random forest or XGBoost or other regression or regularization method you can use. So most of here familiar with the treatment effect, but the heterogeneous treatment effect is very popular in the quasi-experimental design. So the left panel picture is about the average treatment effect examples, and the right panel is the heterogeneous treatment effect. So simply say, we want to identify pure policy impact by individual or by groups. So these are the settings of the analytical flows, and we're using some individual characteristics and special characteristics. And also we use the dependent for frequency of the public transit usage, and then binary choice of the transit to see the probability of the choosing transit. So actually we're all using the open public data. And also you can see even in the modeling result, you can see some kind of discontinuities. So keep decreasing the usage of the subways, but after 65, you can see some increasing of the usage of the public transit. So these are the result of the heterogeneous treatment effect. So average heterogeneous treatment effect, simply say average of the individual treatment effect is 6.9%. But the standard deviation between the individual is 16%, so really quite high. The maximum is 92 and minimum is minus 82. That means they're not going to use the public transit even after 65, and they're mostly doubling to use the public transit. I mean, actually the subway, 92%. And we need to some kind of like a treatment effect of the individual characteristics. So number of the cars in the household, you can see there's a diminishing relationship between the impacts and the number of the cars in the household, and the income. There is a kind of abrupt like a decrease in here, and then also life satisfactions. Subjective well-being is likely to increase the probability of the using the subway after 65. It was the threshold it was the kind of like a Likert scale, but the scaling into 0 to 1. So threshold was 0.4.
So that means they use more public transportation.
Yeah.
Your life satisfaction is higher.
Yeah, higher. And then treatment effect of the infrastructure supply. It is kind of apparent, like as we expected. I mean, number of the bus station, the number of the subway station increase, the higher probability using like a subway. And then also, number of this bus stop increase in certain amount. I mean, it is kind of like a populated area. Like there's a kind of good public transit system in that area. And then these two things is we set up the catchment like around the subway stations. So the number of the bus station out of the subway catchment 500 meters, there is this kind of, I'm not sure this pattern is like apparent or we cannot easily interpret, but this pattern is the number of the bus station inside the subway catchment under the 500 meters, you can see bus infrastructure numbers, so decreasing in here, and then, but after 40, it's keep increasing, right? So there's a kind of similar patterns like this, but after 40, I mean, these numbers, that means it is already populated area, has a good supply of all public transit systems. And then we want to see interactive impacts, like a policy impact and elder population ratio. This is the elder population ratio, low, average, and high. And then policy impacts, like the funny thing is the higher population, elder population density has a negative impact on the policy, I mean, use of the subway. And substitution effect between the bus and subway. So high income groups use buses when bus infrastructure has higher service frequencies, right? So this is the conclusions. So because of the kind of spatial imbalances or demographic discrepancies among the individuals, so fair extension policy, not only fair extension policy, most of the urban policies have a heterogeneous resource impact. So which might dilute the average impact. So can make some kind of biased decision making. And we generally say that multimodal transportation systems, we want to have those kind of like systems, but given that population profiles are shifting or increasing of the aging population, So in that case, like based on our result, we need to consider the extension of the reformation of transportation welfare policies to enhance the use of the public transit for elders, because the percentage of the elder population in the population profile keep increasing, right? That means simply say, for example, we can say, we can extend the fare extension policies to the bus as well. And limitation of this study is we're just using the cross-section data. Based on the open data, there is no like a tracking panel data, time series panel data for can be used these studies. So if we can have those kind of data, or we can merge with the other data set, it'll be better. It can give you better kind of like profounding like factor analysis that can affect the policy impacts. And then, yeah, so maybe we can use other like a contextual inference, so we can generate more model to do some kind of more like a in-depth, like orthogonal causal inference in the futures. And this one, just feel free to listen this research, because actually this research was my wife and me, like I always like keep talking about like a commuting time, because I working in the Seoul, but I live in the Sejong. So my wife always told me like commuting time is very important for life satisfactions. And then also increasing the commuting time after marriage or having a baby. So that means we need to compromise some choices, like choosing some kind of like workplaces or choosing like a housing. But housing is not easy, right? If you live in the Seoul, if your company is a Gangnam, it is not easily get to house in Gangnam, right? So this is not about like a methodology, but this is like a little philosophical paper, right? So highlight affect life satisfactions. And choice dilemmas in job and housing and lifestyle can potentially affect, and at least by minimizing commuting time within the cities. Can we solve our challenges in cities? And what would be the more reliable social welfare policy implication for future cities? Because these days we spend a lot of money for welfare policies, like, right? So quality of life in Korea, average commuting time, it was a little old data, but 58 minutes. And then average working hours is 19.04 hours. And then total fertility rate based on 2022 is a 0.7. Now it's a 0.71 or something. And work-life balance and marriage, right? So this is the data from the Seoul survey, right? So this is the participation of the household tasks. So wife only, mainly wife, equal, mainly husband, and husband only, right? So that means it is kind of long social norms, right? So it is kind of like a gender roles in the household chores, or like they call like a non-paid labor. So household, the flexibility of the choosing a job and house and etc. That would be totally different after marriage, even after having a baby, right? So for us, like we're living in right next to the kindergarten, just right next to the kindergarten. So for us, like it is a kind of best options. We try to minimize the commuting time. So longer commuting time and working hours negatively impact on work-life balance and life satisfactions, right? So these are the hypotheses. They're similar to like a research questions. And we use two models. First one is for understanding the impact, the relationship between the life satisfaction and other factors that can affect the life satisfactions. So for understanding the life satisfaction models, and this one is the household chores participations. So comparing between the wife main or wife only and then versus equal. So 0 and 1 binary choices. So we don't, in that case, we don't have to using the kind of like logistic settings. We can even though using the regression settings because it is a binary choices. And because this is the Likert like a scale, so we using the ordinal problem models. So the result for life satisfaction, determinant factors affecting the life satisfaction by genders before COVID-19. So this is, it is kind of like funny thing is the commuting external zone, not actually inner zone trips, positively affect the life satisfactions. So reference was the same zone, inner zone. So another district has a positively affect life satisfaction for both wife and husband. Sorry, this is a Korean, but this part is a wife, left part is wife, and right part is for husband, right? And then
Which means your house and your working place
yeah,
should be far away from
yeah,
and people
yeah,
worry about it.
yeah.
I'm not sure whether the student agree with this. But anyway.
Actually, this is for like a just marriage couple with the baby. So
Okay, makes sense.
yeah. The only samples is a married couple with the baby, so that's why. Yeah. Before COVID-19. Yeah, before COVID-19. Yeah. So also, so men negatively affected by spouses commuting time. Man does not like woman's working father. Yeah. Longer commuting negatively affect the life satisfactions, more than 60 minutes. And then, so remote working, but the interesting thing is the remote working during the COVID-19. So, but there should be another confounding factors because just no reason stressful, like in the same house all day long do something in the house. So remote working during the COVID-19 especially like negatively affect the life satisfactions, and working more than 70 hours negatively affect the life satisfactions. And during the COVID-19, so before and after, during the COVID-19, relationship between the household task involvement and life satisfaction has changed. That means simply say, because husband or even wife living in home more longer, that means the household chores or household tasks are more evenly distributed with each others. So husband involvement in household tasks now contribute to life satisfaction for both. And then this highlight that when household labor is shared equitably, it can enhance the quality of life for both partners.
So,
네.
this one. Can you also investigate, or maybe you already investigated,
Uh.
about the divorce rate between before COVID and during COVID?
Yeah.
I mean, during the COVID, you mean the men and women equally,
Yeah.
or equally,
More equally.
doing the
Yeah.
household, right?
Yeah.
Then maybe the females love that idea, or maybe actually divorce rate is high.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah. Not just like a husband involvement. Like there is some other conflict. Like, yeah, yeah. So and then before and during the COVID-19, the securing the time through the working condition and commuting is the crucial for husband participation in household tasks. That means if the working places for husband is close to the home, there is a more possibility to spending more time on household chores. Yeah. And during the COVID-19, the impact of these spouses commuting time on life satisfactions has changed by genders. So it was the husband and wife. So there is a spouse commuting time, negative impact on the negative like relationship between the spouse commuting time on life satisfaction becomes more wife side. And this one is the Y is the household task participations. So 0 is the wife only and 1 is equally. So this is the binary, the dependent is binaries. So 2018 to 2021, including the COVID-19, and this one is the excluding the COVID-19s. So implying that moderate the commuting time, 30 to 60 minutes, may lead to more equitable division of equitable like a distribution of the household like responsibilities. And men are more likely to participating in household tasks when the life has a longer commuting time. It's not the usual, but saving commuting time is crucial for balancing household tasks for both wife and husband. That's what we imply. And conclusions: work-life balance and life satisfaction and low fertilities. Actually, my wife's PhD dissertation was the impact of the low fertility incentives. So I keep saying that like there is no impact on fertility incentives. Just simple giving the money. If you so that's why I asked my wife, if you getting some money, how much money you can make some another baby. So she said like no. No. So moderate and flexible working conditions. But she keeps saying that like she agree with this kind of like conclusions. So moderate and flexible working conditions and reduced commuting time. So reduced commuting time is our roles can be, and can help mitigate the gender and spatial disparities in life satisfactions and work-life balance. So that means this can alleviate the choice dilemmas before and after marriage. And policy implications. So we'll keep saying about these kind of policies like a low fertility rate and aging society in the urban context and 15-minute cities. We said like these are the kind of issues and also is kind of ideal things in the futures. But so those kind of policies or strategies, just only thinking about designated to single field, are not effective anymore. So what do we need? Make effective policies. I don't like the word effective, but alleviating the future challenges. Maybe we can think about these kind of like issues in the futures. So second one is the last paper. Last paper is a little long.
Before going to the last paper,
Yeah.
I just say ChatGPT about the divorce rate. Say divorce rate during the COVID-19 pandemic varies based on region and culture. Yeah, some studies indicated the increase in the divorce rate. Factors such as the stress from the pandemic, economic difficulties, and increase the time spent at home.
That's yeah.
Be careful. Okay, has to go out.
But opposite way. It can be opposite way. Right? Yeah. It can be. I remember my COVID-19 seasons. Actually, during the COVID-19 2020 and 2020, I was in the Denmark. All buildings are shut down, like even the school. If I go to school to do some work, but the guard came to me and then you cannot be here. So it was totally blocked. So we spent whole day in the same house. So it was a good experience, hopefully for my baby, but not for us, honestly. Yeah, not for us. So yeah, this is the second like motivations. Simply, you guys can think like we try to make a modeling framework. Actually, I used to doing some research when I was in Denmark, like doing some probabilistic modeling or graphical modeling. But after came into here, but it was not enough time to working on my own research. But these days we just small start, like a just small step to going back to my original research. So I keep asking my students to, can you collaborate with me or something? So this is the integrated non-parametric models. So Gaussian process with the just ML models for making like a framework for analyzing the traffic safety in urban context. So this is the title. and keyword is a spatial temporal modelings and Gaussian process and load safety index and non-parametric modeling approaches. The research question is, how do we model like a spatial temporal heterogeneous behaviors? And how do we connect the traditional theories with the non-parametric approaches? So, and then is it possible to develop the kind of framework, or we also say kind of platform, but it is not much like a platform, not yet, but this will make tools for practitioner or even can give some services to end users. And the contributions, so these are the contributions. We try to make an analytical framework that can make some more accurate and then giving more like intuitive like solutions or factor analysis to users. So these are the kind of, you can easily see these kind of like things if you see some kind of popular articles about the behavior research. So omitted variable biases or spatial temporal correlations or time-varying experimentary variables, and for like over under dispersions, for example, like a Poisson distributions or functional form, parameters, fixed parameters, or like some kind of zero inflated is required. So yeah, these are the kind of popular things or issues mainly talked about in kind of behavior papers, not only in accident research. And this is our data set. It was the traffic accident, like a crash frequency data set. It was the collected by policy reports recorded in the scene of the accident. So there is a kind of, you can see, this is the road name, road segment. You can see there is a kind of different discrepancies between the frequencies or risk indexes by the road segment and by the time. There is a kind of large heterogeneous, spatial temporal heterogeneous for accident data. And then also non-linear relationship of the accident casualties and associated covariates. And this is the research flow. We used it, actually, we are actually focusing on, we are talking about this like a modeling part later. We are focusing more about the out of sample predictions. Out of sample predictions, because usually the kind of highly tailored models, for example, like AI based or machine learning based, they're always suffer from the out of sample predictions. So try to make another validation for out of sample predictions, so we can use this framework in other domain or in other places. So sometimes we tried a lot of things like because Professor Kim already familiar with these kind of topics, so we use the crash frequencies by type or crash type or just casualties. But we are trying to make some kind of analytical like a framework for traffic accident or traffic safety in urban context. So that's why we make some index. So thinking about the weights of the casualties. Because you guys are familiar with this guy, this index was like a little designed by, like a little modified by like a EPDO index. So we assume that this kind of index can be represent the risk of the certain load segment or load types. And we need to identify spatial temporal heterogeneity for index. So this is for understanding the spatial heterogeneities. This is the temporal heterogeneities, temporal correlations of the accident risks. And then this is the Moran's eye of our index. So we intentionally make a high, high, low, low, high, low, low, high. So we try to show the dynamic characteristics of the spatial temporal distributions of the accident risks in Seoul areas. But so that's why we found out that there is a kind of highly heterogeneous behaviors in here. So we require to capture these spatial temporal variations somehow. So yeah, spatial temporal Mattern Gaussian process boostings. It is not a completely new. It is all existing things. So Gaussian process is, you guys are familiar with, it is a non-parametrics. So method and usually some Gaussian functions to smoothing between the multivariate Gaussian distributions. And then, but Mattern is usually used for spatial heterogeneities or happens. So Mattern Gaussian function, you can simply say it is better for making rough surface of the Gaussian process. So this is the basic function of this modeling. So you can see where K refers to the road types or road segments. So in details, so basic Mattern covariance functions defined as like this. These are the kind of lengths, like smoothing factors, or this is the other smoothing factors. This is the Euclidean distance. So yeah, so if this is the kind of like parameters, hyperparameters, it becomes like infinite. Now it becomes a Gaussian covariance functions. But we usually set up like a 1.5, 2.5, or 2.0 or something. But based on our data set, we set up to 1.5 in here. Also, Mattern is the kind of popular covariance functions can be really well coupled with the Gaussian process. And this is the first validation result. So our model, non-parametric mixture approaches outperforms comparison with the single ML, just single using the boostings, and then linear mixed models, and then ML mixed with the linear mixed model, parametrical. So left was the overall risk predictions, and then right was the risk prediction by the road segments. So you can see the red dots in here. And this is the out of sample validations. So like I said before, most of the machine learning based or non-parametrical based models has suffered from out of sample issues. So our model provide more consistent predictions using the out of samples. And you can see the red dots is our model. I make some comparison. You can see some more consistent or consolidates the result, validation results compared to other methods. And this is because we set up the random parameters, like, we estimated random parameters using the Gaussian process for time and spatial. So, the low segment. So we need to also validate how well the Gaussian process are capturing the random parameters compared to other methods. So you can see this is our model. This is the comparison model, ML, the machine learning mixture with the just simple mixed models. And then this is the ML with the Gaussian process. So the random parameter estimation, non-parametrical provide a more unbiased estimators. So Mattern plus with the Gaussian process gives more like reliable random parameter estimations. And we need to make some applications, right? We need to make some kind of potential application. We need to think about it, right? So first one is we need to predict the safety level by road segment in 4 levels, 1 to 4. 4 is the dangerous, but 1 is the least dangerous. This is the Seoul area. And further, so because non-parametric models or like ML models, we using the shape values, but shape values is not kind of intuitive for users or even the practitioners. So this is the urban context. Like we need to think like we need to have a spatial visualizations or spatial interpretations to give more intuitive informations. So we can see some kind of visualize the shape values like this. So if you see the details, like for instance, like a type of the road segments such as the intersections or ramps are likely to be more dangerous, especially at different times of the days. You can see night road type, like bridge overpass, has a higher possibility of the becoming risky road. And then morning road type bridge overpass is more highly risky and high. And then also the human factors and time variances that can affect the accident risk are also identified. And then also there is a weather and time, midnight weather and rainy, that can affect the accident risk are also identified. So conclusions. So actually mixture of the two components. But the thing is, the idea is we are not limited to certain algorithms. We can be easily tailored and applied to many domains or tailored with other algorithms. And limitations is apparent. More data sources to explain the real-time, more likely real-time heterogeneous, like a spatial temporal characteristics that can affect the traffic safeties. But data generation is possible options these days, but still requires a good baseline data set. We need to have a validate whether the generated data is good enough to use for future predictions. So well-balanced multi-level time series can provide a prediction in a short time span. And future research is built-in data fusions and causal learning. Both things should be at the same times, can provide the accurate prediction and profound factor analysis. And by enhancing the generalities of this modeling framework and pipeline, this can further extend this framework as a spatio-temporal behavior analysis platform. And we also make an online dashboard and API for this work. We're trying this now. Closing remark for just my opinion. Just feel free, feel casual to listen, because I keep saying to my students these days, but I would say like you guys are future colleagues or even already colleagues in here. You guys are already colleagues. When I mean the future colleagues means you can become a PhD or become other faculty members or researchers or research associate everywhere. So for me is reading your own paces and writing practices. Reading articles is not easy, right? Because you guys are engineering background or mostly doing some kind of a lot of mathematical equations in the articles. But you can see some papers are very interesting to read. Articles are boring, but there is an article somehow like interesting to read well, right? So start with those things. So I mean, the best article is the interesting to read, right? So good to set up a goal to read some things. It was my kind of when I doing the PhD. So you know, someday you don't want to do anything, just do nothing, but you can spend 1 hour, right? 1 hour for reading something, reading articles or reading or blogs or just books, whatever. And it becomes 1 month and it becomes 1 year. It is a lot. It becomes a lot. So it can be good habits. And GPT, I believe all of you, or not all of you, I don't want to say like that way, but most of the people using the GPT, because GPT is useful, but not good for enhancing your reading and writing skill, I believe. So I would not recommend to use the GPT for translating English to Korean or other ways, or just don't just like copy and paste one pages into the GPTs. But it does not give you any kind of valuable things, right? So instead, if you're confusing about certain like a part or certain sentence or certain chapters or certain paragraphs, you can just ask the behind meanings, specific sections and explanation. It can help. It can help. So, but if you keep using the GPT, so you're not having a good writing skill. And this is the keep saying that my PhD advisor always say to me, like article writing is a coding, right? If you do some code like with a single lines of the code, right? Same, like without the single line of the sentence. So in other words, if the readers have some question about your sentence, that means you need to have some another explanation, right? So this paragraph and the entire chapters are not working at all if you're missing a single line of the sentence. So if you keep thinking about this way, and then if you start to write in this kind of way, it will be more helpful. And then please write it in short sentence. And the last part is they find your own ways to make it fun. So staying at a graduate school is hard, right? Difficult. Yeah, when I remember my PhD, it was not that fun. But for now, that time was having more time, and I can spend more time for myself. So studying at the graduate school is your life, right? It is not just like a single exam for having some license, right? So you need to have your own life. So, but after graduation, you will have more busy life, right? So it can be done by 1 to 2 years. So think about your own like habits or and some kind of like a fun. That's all. This is the ongoing research articles, and this is the ongoing research. You're working on it. So we still start combining some things like. And thank you. That's all. That's all I have. Yeah.
Questions from the audience?
Not about this presentation. Whatever questions you have. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, it's not about the presentation.
Yeah.
But really nice presentation.
Thanks.
I just remember you said you did your PhD in America and then your postdoc in Europe.
Yeah.
So also you were in Korea. From your experiences, do you feel like work-life balance?
Uh-huh.
How is it?
You better ask the Professor King. Yeah, he has more experience. For me, I don't know. Work-life balance. The academia. If you're staying in academia, even you're staying in Europe or America or Korea, you will always like having some kind of concerns and like thinking about your research and those things. But the lifestyle in different countries, European countries, they work really like they go back to home like until 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Denmark, especially Denmark, because they have a long nights, like right, long night. So they go back to home like 4:30 or 5 by using the bicycle, and then they drink a lot. They really drink a lot. They even before the holidays, you cannot see any wine bottles in grocery stores. Yeah, all of the wine cellars or like bottles are gone. If you have like a 4 days weekend, because they have a lot of homecoming parties and because they have a long night, they're not going out to like make some dinners, just making some home parties. Finally, US is good, 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 balanced. Not work. I mean, not talking about the work-life balance, but balanced between the Europe countries and Korea. For me, I believe. It's up to you. It's up to you. For me, Korea is my hometown, mother country, and so in our social norm is the first kid. I'm the only child, so I need to care of my parents. So I need to come back. Also, my wife is working here, so I had no options. But after marriage, my wife asked me to, you'd better getting a job. Why don't you getting a job in the Canada? Because she wants to live in the Canada. She's still saying that. But I'm living in Korea. I'm satisfied with it. But it's up to you because you're international students. You have a lot of options. Yeah. Any questions? You can ask Korean questions. Korean students can ask in Korean. I can translate into English.
Work and life balance, I believe, um, uh, normally it's like peer pressure, peer pressure. You're looking at your peers in these departments, probably find some certain levels of feeling of peer pressure. If you look at the other top universities in all around the world, United States, UK, Australia, they study really hard. Okay, they spend a lot of time, a lot of time on research before finishing the PhD. So it's very difficult to push even my students to work harder when their peers do not work harder. And your environment is very important, but environment is consist of individual students. You guys needed to push yourself, each other in a way that everyone goes to the higher level. Of course, you probably work more than any other students in Korean universities, but if you compare to other top universities, other countries, they also work really, really hard. Okay? And then your competition is not the students in Korea, at least for the high school student. Your competitors are outside of Korea, so might need to. I'm sorry to say that you kept it in work and balance, but you can have that one later.
Yeah. You can have that.
Now, balance now, when you age of 30, 40, then your balance is broken. Balance is broken, for sure. So, why I'm talking to you guys, and I feel like I'm a phone there, but this is a reality. Reality. So we should be a better peers for your landmates or classmates. You guys are able who creates that environment. No one else. And that's the thing that I want to tell you. What do you think?
Last thing, I have adding some kind of opinions. Yeah, peer effect is very important. Peer effect. I mean, you guys are top university, technical university in Korea, right? So your peers is very strong, and like the Professor Kim said, but you guys can be compatible, have a good competition with the other top university students, right? So you guys keep push you harder, right? Harder with each others, help each others, and if someone in your lab is working really well, you can just show him and then just follow him or mimic him, right? So it is very important, right? So also the work-life balance. Work-life balance. My wife knows my salaries, right? So also she knows my working hours. She told me one day like, if you have this amount of salary, you'd better do some kind of like a part-time job or like a convenience, working at a convenience store. Like, the minimum salary for 1 hours for part-time job is not bad, right? Yeah. You guys are, it's your choice. You guys are starting your graduate school, right? You want to become like a PhD or master's or even whatever you want to do. If you want to stay in the academia or like an industry, it's your choice, right? So, but if I ask someone for me, like if you satisfy your life now, even though you're working a lot of hours or you're spending a lot of time like commuting a lot, yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah. Because work-life balance, I mean, simply say for us, work-life balance is if you had to do something, if you have your own like personal work today, you can spend your today. But that means you can make some makeups during the weekends or during the nights, right? That is the best thing for this job, this kind of research job, right? So in that case, that is for your work-life balance. You can spend your own, you can manage your schedule by yourself. But that means you can make up your, like, your time for research or work, right? That's all. That's all I have. Yeah. 네. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.